Ole Miss game from this past weekend, and in the 5 o'clock hour, I think, guys, we're probably going to turn the page to this coming week that has been one that we have looked so forward to for so long. Ole Miss and Tulsa. So the Rebels jumped out to a 7-0 lead, 6 plays, 75 yards, minute 39, 20-yard touchdown run from Zach Evans, and you thought, ooh, here we go again. And then Tulsa went 12 plays and 87 yards in 5 minutes and 21 seconds. They scored a touchdown, and you're like, oh, well, that's interesting. So 7 apiece. And then Tulsa had another touchdown as Bren threw his second touchdown pass of the game to go up 14-7. And then Ole Miss went to work. 4-yard touchdown run for Quinshon Judkins to cap a 12-play, 75-yard drive. 31-yard touchdown pass from Jackson Dart to Malik Heath. 4 plays and 64 yards in a minute 6. Touchdown run from Judkins to cap a 12-play, 93-yard drive that made it 28-14. 31-yard touchdown pass, Jackson Dart to Jonathan Mingo. 2 plays, 46 yards, 17 seconds. I mean, it was bam, 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 35-14. And then Tulsa kicked a 28-yard field goal going into the locker room to make it 35-17. Ole Miss was done scoring at that point. So, full disclosure.
That Mingo touchdown?
Yeah.
That guy would have been better off just throwing himself on the ground and hoping Mingo tripped over him. He had a better chance of getting him on the ground that way. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
No, I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah. Just my full disclosure was I watched pretty much every play of the first half. I watched basically none of the rest of the game. I had it on my iPad, like in a little corner of the screen while I had other stuff up that I needed for the game that I was actually broadcasting. I just couldn't focus on the second half of the Ole Miss Tulsa game. So was it a case of Ole Miss just downshifted, shut it down, said got the win, and let's move to the next one? Did they play poorly? Was Tulsa really good? What was your takeaway?
It's a case of everything can be true at once. I mean, you want some positive spin? I'll give you some positive spin and a dose of reality.
Okay.
The positive spin is, one, they won the game on a weekend where Georgia struggled with Kent State, in a season where Arkansas was down 2 scores in the second half to Missouri State. Your next opponent, Kentucky, beat Northern Illinois by a touchdown. In the same season, they struggled with Miami of Ohio and gave up a bunch of sacks and stuffed plays to Youngstown State. So this does happen. Sleepy environment, really sleepy environment. Your coach wasn't happy about that. You get up 35-14, and you could see that, especially after they get up 35-14, they shifted down and went as vanilla as they could have possibly been in terms of scheme and play calling after that. They shut it down in the same way they did against Troy, in the same way they did last year against Liberty and Vanderbilt. So there's your positive spin. This happens. Look-ahead games happen. Georgia, the almighty Georgia, played poorly against a much lesser team this weekend, and it was close. Little dose of reality, though, is that's the 4th week in a row where you've wondered if the offensive line is going to be good enough to protect a quarterback against SEC competition.
And you know what's interesting about that is this offensive line is really good in run blocking.
Another 300-plus yard day. But there are things that they appeared to do poorly that can't just be attributed to, well, they were disinterested. Snaps especially are a huge problem. Snaps are a problem. I mean, when they get back accurately, they take forever to get there, throwing the timing off of the offense. They had a bad day at punt returner. Dropped 2 once. Now he's able to recover both of them, but he dropped 2 punt returns. Sorry, hey, Dad. Ask Mississippi State what happens when you drop punt returns against SEC teams. Bad things happen there. So the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Defensively, they had a handful of sacks that they just let a guy get away from them. They appeared to be quite vanilla. Jackson Dart had a good day, but you don't want him taking as many hits as he took in the run game. You hope it was more sleepwalking than it was otherwise, but I think the offensive line at this point, until proven otherwise, is an area of concern in pass protection. They don't protect well enough and haven't for 4 weeks, and that has got to get better, or else they're going to lose on Saturday.
It's interesting to hear you talk about Ole Miss and what went wrong and talk about all these offensive issues. I thought defensively Ole Miss was not good in this game. Not good at all.
Did not tackle
watching
well at all.
Watching that Tulsa quarterback, all I could think was, like, what is KJ Jefferson and Jaden Daniels going to be able to do to this Ole Miss defense when they get out there? Because they're better runners than that guy is. And LSU and Arkansas have more weapons than that. I thought, we talked about their defense on Friday, and Richard, you were like, that's a really good defense. And they had played really well the first 3 weeks, but that was not a good defensive performance. And that would worry me more than anything if I was an Ole Miss fan.
Yeah, I'll tell you what else probably worries you is the fact that Ole Miss defense, they didn't have a single sack. Now, I don't know how much pressure they brought.
Not very much. But they should have had a ton. They just missed tackles. Tackling was poor for the first time this season.
Yeah.
Had half a dozen opportunities for sacks that would have stalled drives and just didn't complete plays. It should help next week, or I guess this week now, with Pegues and Coleman coming back from injury. At least that's what Kiffin said after the game, that he expects both of them to play. That'll help some in that regard. But it was the word I would use is uninspiring. They played uninspired football, but it wasn't just that. I think that they did things poorly that they might just do poorly and can't just be attributed to, sleepy environment, look-ahead game. I think it all can be true at the same time.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And like we said on Friday, this was a game where you really wanted to be playing your best football and have that momentum and not have to have any questions going into this weekend with Kentucky. And instead, you got the opposite. I got questions.
All right, so let me ask you this: if we're hosting a radio show in Lexington today, are we having the exact same conversation about Kentucky, or are you going, just go win the game, and this week's the one that matters?
Worse. Levis was in trouble. I mean, worse than Dart. If you think Ole Miss's offensive line is bad, watch Kentucky's play.
Did not play well.
No. I mean, the more I've watched Kentucky, the less I think that they are what we thought they were. I think they are fool's gold in the top 10. Man, they can't protect him. They can't run block to save their lives.
So does SEC Shorts. Yeah. So does SEC Shorts.
Will Levis was sacked 5 times by Northern Illinois.
Northern Illinois, who lost to Vanderbilt at home the week before.
That's exactly. Vanderbilt beat Northern Illinois by more on the road than Kentucky beat Northern Illinois at home.
And
that's a weird transitive property happening there, but
you can't attribute that to the look ahead for Kentucky because they were bad against Miami of Ohio and they were bad against Florida. Look, go back and watch the Florida game. They couldn't protect Will Levis against Florida. They couldn't run the ball against Florida. Anthony Richardson handed them the football game on a silver platter. If you think Ole Miss is not playing well up front, Kentucky's worse. What a weird thing to say considering what we thought about them going into the season.
Yeah. Kentucky does get Chris Rodriguez back this week, who is the best running back on their team. Say what?
That's a big get for them.
It is. It is.
To get him back.
You still got to have somebody block. And, Ole Miss has seen him before, saw him a couple of years ago in Lexington. And the stage is set.
Much different Ole Miss defense.
Yeah. And Kentucky might be without their 6-fingered linebacker. I saw your faces. I did that on purpose. Kentucky. J.J. Weaver's got 6 fingers. Google it. He's got 6 fingers on one of his hands.
I know a guy looking for him.
He's not on the depth chart this week. Battling injury, probably not going to play against Ole Miss. So that's a tough loss for Kentucky there. But, yeah, it's real. Kentucky's got a 6-fingered linebacker.
6-finger guy.
2 former Ole Miss players are playing significantly for Kentucky defensively. Jaquez Jones had 12 tackles against Northern Illinois this past week. Also got Keydron Smith playing. Is he starting? I haven't looked at their depth chart.
He does play a good bit. I don't know if he starts, but they both play. Jones was a good player at Ole Miss, too, so I'm not surprised that he plays a lot and is impactful at Kentucky.
Yeah. That's one that if you could get a redo on, you're trying to figure out a way to keep him.
Yeah.
And I know people wanted to spin it at the time as, oh, well, he's going to get beat out at linebacker. And
he would have.
He would have played less last year. He was not as good as Chance Campbell, but he still would have played, and he still would have had significant tackles. Every snap that Momo Sonogo took, he would have taken last year.
And more, probably.
Yeah.